Most people are looking for how do I make a life worth living, and how do I make a retirement worth having, and how do I make sure that I'm not being led astray by people who hear our life story and then want to harm us in some way. You see, the hard part is knowing who to trust in today's world, but there are number systems that help us to understand the world. There's a marvelous little teacher in the Nora area who teaches about the God signs of the land. You see, she teaches an overview class that allow you to pick and choose the metaphysicists' aspects of life that you long to hear. You see, the spirit world can make noise. The spirit world can control things, but the spirit world does not produce the mayhem in the land. People produce the mayhem in the land. They don't listen well to others is not always true. They sometimes listen, but then they gossip. The minute they gossip, they start to be infiltrated by the evil ones in their lives, their daughters, their sons, their friends, their colleagues, the patrons of their store, the police who lie, steal, and cheat people out of their lives. You see, the Lord is not pleased with certain forces in this land today. We have politicians that need to go, we have new ones that need to come into our lives, and openly we're not sure what to do a lot of times when some total stranger says, look, you're larger than life, why don't you reach out and help someone? For entertainment value, we have amazing people in the television world who do incredible things in instantaneous capabilities or through proper planning by having audience members brought in from other countries to produce amazing results for that individual, for them to see loved ones they haven't seen in years, or to be put on television for their incredible work and for how hard they drive and strive in the land to produce a life here in America. The problem is that they are bringing into the land illness. They're bringing into the land thinking that this land is for them when they really belong back in their home countries after they finish their educational experiences. You see, there are certain countries across the world that get special statuses that allow them to come here and stay, whereas there are other countries that are intelligent and have people of high morals and high capabilities that are not allowed to stay because visas are not the same. We have people in America who hear a sorry story from someone who's gone through struggle or someone who's gone through theft, and they just think, what's one more object stolen from this person? They medicate them when they're sitting in their shop, or they put something on their food that's offered, and the next thing you know, that individual falls fast asleep. They're so groggy they sort of wake up and see someone getting in and out of their bags, but they can't tell exactly who it is because their memory has been jolted. Their mind has been harmed, and their trust factors have been obliterated in many ways, shapes, or forms. When we have property that has value to us and sometimes value to others, people envy it. People look it over. They pilfer. They put their hands on it. They get into our private drawers if they have maintenance keys or other legal reasons by which they supposedly can align themselves to our locks and open up our doors and come in and look through our property. But if we bestow ourselves on people, we give them gifts of God that the Lord says to them, that really proves to them we are truly in the house of God, they sometimes forget who's watching from above. They literally start to talk about our lives with other people. They start to get opinions of others, like their adult children who know nothing of federal law and openly know nothing of God's law because they're not attending church anymore. They might have been raised in churches, according to them, allegedly. They might have had a strict upbringing, but that does not make them moral in front of the God in heaven. It does not make an individual woman properly trained in God's social graces to know that the Lord of all things, Jesus Christ himself, would never in a million years allow a child to open a man's pack, to get into his bags, or to allow that child to steal toys that are not rightfully his. That particular mom would never be allowed to open a man's bag to get into his mail and steal unlawful information that is not a total stranger's right to have, simply merely because that stranger decided to enter a shop, of a shop owner to say, "The Lord has sent me here to help you to produce better results, to force you to be more competitive with your own selfish nature, and to get you to see that this shop will fold if you do not represent God in everything that you do." You see, the Lord of the land has shifted in his heart, mind, and soul for many people. Pastors of the land are lying to people about their rights. They are taking away the rights of the impoverished to eat healthily and safely. They are lying to themselves of what they can and can't do in someone's property if they stay in their parsonages. And openly they are lying to the men and women in the world about who is and isn't holy under God's house. We have many people today who don't recognize that the Lord produces every human being in the land. I want you to think about what that means. It means that every child that's born unto a parentage has already been put through a spiritual decision by the Lord. That the Lord has chosen to produce that soul, that rightful individual, to go into the human form much like Jesus did, to walk the earth, to be themselves, to produce life, liberty, and love in a way that only a peaceful child of heaven can, but only with the right parenting, only with the right nephew or niece status, and openly only with the right people in their lives is not true. But if we aren't training our children in God's laws, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not murder. And what we mean by murder may not always be the killing kind. It may just be the disruption, the distraction, the disembowelment of an individual's physical being or their body or their soul. You see, people kill the soul every single day. The Lord sends people into shops to seek assistance, to gain help, to make purchases, to produce more results for the individual who's opened the shop, but that shop owner has failed to listen to God. And as a result, they might be making money hand over fist, but they are not honoring the Lord if they are lying, stealing, and cheating people out of their personhood, their paperwork, including their mail, or their property, including any item that individual possesses on their bags. There's always that thief in the night who will wake a homeless person and harass them, or who will simply get near that homeless person and take things without proper permission. They will monkey around in their property. They will put things into their notebooks. They will literally involve themselves in illegal, immoral activities around that person's lives with the help of people that have absolutely no lawful right to provide gossip information or to provide any kind of information whatsoever about that individual's life. But that individual will go in, sneak in, call in, text in, send support messages in, and literally obliterate God's plan for that relationship. This man of this pastoral capabilities has seen this so many times in his life that the Lord sends him to a place where he can be useful, where he can be helpful, where his skill sets and talents should be properly addressed, regarded, respected, and paid for. And some individual in a person's immediate family, whether it be the family of birth origin or whether it be the family chosen by that individual, meaning they've aligned themselves with those people, utterly, totally destroys the Lord's plan. You see, people destroy God's plans in their lives. People destroy their businesses. People destroy relationships. People destroy opportunities for those they allegedly love because of their jealousies, because of their sincere lack of understanding of how the Lord God works in mysterious ways. You see, the magic of God is never something that is present in a human being exactly. The magic of God is gifted to the human beings who put the Lord first in their life. In this man's particular life, he was once a selfish person. He once knew that he had to tough love on his own child that wasn't of his own loins, because the child was being produced in a way by other people's children and other people's unlawful rights in that child's parentage. Those parents would think they were above his own father and mother because they had more money, or they had more time, or they had more freedoms, or they had more toys, or they had more opportunities to buy their children Starbucks or some sort of sophisticated technology. But that's not the truth in the Lord's house. You see, the one who pays for the meals, the one who clothes the child, the one who provides shelter is the lawful parent of any human being that is brought into this world and brought to America. So while it's wonderful to highlight the people that are doing such incredibly good work by these famous people on television, those people are going to lose their lives at some point. And what do I mean by that? I don't mean they're going to take their own lives like many comedians and people who just couldn't produce enough love for God have. What I mean is that every human being eventually goes back into the earth in the way that we talk about ashes to ashes and dust to dust. What I mean is that every human being faces their Maker. And what do I mean by that is biblically what is sound, that even the angels do not look upon the Lord's face, that they are so humbled in awe of his capabilities that they don't look upon the Lord at all. Now the Lord is both male and female. We learn that in Genesis. We learn that the Lord sent their Son Jesus in human form to experience what life is like as a human, to take that information back to the land in which the Lord comes from, to help them to see how Jesus Christ loved on people. You see, you cannot love on people if you think you're going to control an individual. You cannot love on people if you think you have the right to harm a person's physical being. The Lord put this biblical scripture in place very clearly. The Lord said, "This is my body. Do this in remembrance of me." So when you look at how you feed your body, when you look at how you clothe yourself in modesty and preparations for the elements of the day, the weather, the inclements, etc., are you producing a result that is honoring to the Lord? There are many lovely men and women in this land. There are many people who are less fortunate in the areas of looks. There are many people whose genetics didn't quite make it and openly are ill. And yes, there is some Darwinism of the concept of survival of the fittest. But the problem is we have many men and a handful of women who thoroughly think that if they are bestowed some gifts by someone, meaning that person walks in and says, "I've been sent by the Lord," they want to mock that gift. They want to take away something from a person's property by illegally drugging them, making them fall asleep in a chair, and openly allowing 10-year-olds and 12-year-olds of their family lineage to go play in someone's baggage like it's a game. They want to mock a person's right to keep their bodies safe from the rapists and the destroyers of physical beings. They want to think that they are somehow aligned with God if they participate in police forces who stalk, trample, and destroy lives. You see, that is not godly. It is by far not holy. And openly, when I'm talking in this way, I'm saying, who do you believe you are in the house of the Lord? You see, the house of the Lord has many rooms. But those many rooms are only aligned with love, honor, dignity, peace, and regard for human life. Human life has the right to choose things for sure. Human life has the right to listen to the Lord and do as the Lord's will bids them to do. If the Lord said unto thee, "Pick up thy torch and light the way for others to find me, through precious gifts I'm going to give unto thee," how do you handle that when you're faced with it in front of you? You see, there are many psychics and many mediums that the Lord has given birth to. I know many personally, not at all. I know enough to know that the God is speaking through them. that is literally saying important educational things. I've met one or two women in my life, including my spouse of many years, who were able to send me a message from God by being loving, kind, and simply listening to me and then giving their opinions, whether that opinion be rendered in English or whether that opinion be rendered in a foreign language with a foreign God that is absolutely better than most Christians could possibly be. You see, as a man who had a bicultural relationship, we would often attend churches because that was all that was available in an affluent community. Now we're starting to see a few Muslim mosques go up in Hamilton County, and they have the right to produce that as long as those mosques are focusing on loving Americans, on loving people in their neighborhoods, on being regardful in the Spirit, and being watchful of the Lord. In honoring men above women, the Lord is not pleased with. That millennium is over with. In telling people off, the Lord is not pleased with. In secretly aligning societies to take over certain portions of our gas, of our food, of our commodities, of our resources, God is not pleased. There is always a risk of someone being infiltrated by a liar of the Lord. Someone who professes to know God but spews hatred, produces destruction, and utterly violates federal law by grabbing an individual with 6 men who think they know God's plan for someone's life and destroying that body by breaking it, by dishonoring it, by raping it, by illegally drugging it, by disproportionalizing the blood flow within it, by manipulating it, by mutilating it without consent, and by lying about it on record within major corporations, hospitals, clinics, and physicians' offices across the land. The police have put themselves in a position of great power in America. The president has allowed it, and it's out of control, the Lord feels. When I speak like this, I put myself at risk for mockery, for attack physically, and many reporters who report on the lying of the police field have been brutalized, beaten, put in hospitals, raped, destroyed, demoralized, and yet their souls still sing the truth because the Lord has put within them a desire to let the world know this is not okay. God is not pleased by your attack on people's lives. God is not honored by your dishonoring and dismembering a human being's life. God is not going to be pleased with you destroying a person's intellectual property. You see, intellectual property is the creative, artistic capabilities of the human mind that has been literally chosen by the Lord and gifted upon that individual through parent lineages and parent upbringing and parent support. But it is the child of God, not the child of those parents, that are being destroyed. I learned the other morning of a young woman who was planning to change her name to a boy's name to honor a young man who she had allegedly met online, who supposedly had committed suicide a short time after their impartation of becoming friends. What a horrible way to go is not the point. That she was expressing her grief over the fact that because they lived a considerable distance, because she sort of is impoverished and lives with her parents, she could not attend that individual's funeral. I've had many people mock my life. I've had many people take information and think they're going to control how I feel about myself. As a pastor of God, I have no more need of their help. You see, I am almost 50 years old, and I have lived most of my life since the age of 3 as a male child of the Lord. My life has always been productive as a male. I have produced business, yet someone stole my tax records of more than 10 years. They manipulated my apartment complex where I paid a paltry fee to have safe locks. They stole my bank records, both my personal ones and my business records. They took my mail. They manipulated a lock I purchased from Amazon. How is it remotely possible that when I buy a lock for my apartment door inside to protect the safety of my body from rape, pillagement, and the destruction of gifts I've purchased for other people, that some individual would open my mailbox, look at my mail on a regular basis, and then literally open a lawfully purchased item from Amazon that is coming from Schlage Lock, a major lock corporation, and change out the innards of that lock so that my apartment key to the outside of my door will open that inner door that is set up to be safely different from an apartment complex locked key. You see, there are liars in maintenance staffs. My mother and I changed out a light bulb just that day. And when maintenance came along for something else, and I mentioned that, they got up on the ladder and changed the bulb because they were not listening to me saying my mother and I just changed that bulb. Then the two of them stood there and lied to me about having done it again, which meant the brand new bulb I had just put in was taken and an old bulb was put in its place. They're liars about our electricity. I tested a theory in my complex. I literally lived without light of any kind. I wore flashlights. I walked through my house, and wouldn't you know it, every time I purchased a dollar store-oriented flashlight that would clip on a necklace so that I could walk through my home and have privacy to my body and other things, those flashlights would go missing from my drawers. How is it that anyone knew what I purchased? My talking sumo players from Japan have gone missing from my storage unit in Fishers. Many items that I set aside in an organized fashion so that I could get to them for my pastoral work and my future employment have gone missing or been moved. You see, I aligned my storage unit in a way that would allow me to access the things I needed most. And yet my photographic equipment of quality, productivity for many years of ownership has gone missing from my storage. My professional tripods that have a value of $100 to $200 in the way that they are constructed have gone missing. My Eskrima sticks that keep me safe and allow me to practice my martial arts of many old years to protect my body from harm have gone missing from the bag in which I put them in. My gloves of my baseball years and my son's glove and my father's glove have gone missing from my property, all through locks on a storage unit door. What gives any law officer the right to go into my property and pilfer one thing? There's no federal law that says you may go and enter someone's place without a warrant and certainly without serving them. I have siblings that have infiltrated my mail and interfered with my lawful receipt of mail. My mail is being redirected by someone to a sibling's house where I did not reside. I simply was staying as a guest for a short time. While I was there, someone actually got into my bags, opened my personal belongings, took photographs precious to me of myself and my spouse, and cut them, manipulated them, mutilated them, as if they were angry about my life with that individual. While I lived in my apartment complex, photographic albums full of my family's exploration of America got replaced with photographs that I never took of my siblings' families. You see, that's a malicious intent of a sister who wants to think she's in control. One sister had a copy of a locked box key and lied about no longer retaining it. My private lockbox was invaded by her. Literally, papers of legal nature stolen, and placed within it were photographs that only could have come from another sister's photo album. You see, I didn't keep those photos. I had already gotten rid of photographs that I didn't want lingering for someone to utilize to abuse my life. I have a right as a lawful citizen of these United States and not a sovereign citizen, as some police officer joked in the last situation, where they inappropriately labeled me, where they inappropriately called me, where they inappropriately touched me, where they inappropriately mocked my need to go to the bathroom, where they inappropriately downsized my penis, where they inappropriately medicated me, where they lied and stole portions of my medical files and ruined those records. When I go to get the proper medication now, I will be facing a challenge because the medications that I need practically for my body to remain healthy and strong are now being manipulated by the government. They're being aligned with our social security numbers, they're being destructive of our driver's license numbers, and openly those people have no lawful right to tell me what the Lord has put in my soul to be or how I'm going to produce a life for myself. Now, in moments of time, we have to decide, who are we representing in this world? Are we lawfully representing ourselves only? And if so, then we are federally, lawfully, legally, and liability-wise required to be honest and true. If we are an illegal person, we will continue to lie, steal, and pilfer property, paperwork, and a person's life away that is not ours to take. You see, the Lord watches over all things, and in the end of life, the Lord will take you home. Whether the Lord takes you home early through murder by someone else, just as you've done to someone's paperwork. You see, when you steal paperwork of an individual that are not yours, you have murdered that individual's life. When you steal property that was purchased lovingly as a gift for someone, you have murdered that person's rights. When you inappropriately lie, steal, and cheat a person out of their life by refusing to talk to them on the phone in a mature way, you have murdered the soul to a point. But see, only the Lord can strengthen those who are being harmed by your murderous ways. You see, murder is what people do to the soul. They murder the soul in spite of the body. They talk about the body in inappropriate ways. There's no more modesty in America is absolute truth. Women wear dress inappropriately and then get upset with men for lusting after them and being inappropriate and hollering and whistling and calling them out and talking to them in dirty ways. And when I was forced to remain in a jail cell, I had to suffer through men inappropriately talking to women and women inappropriately talking to men as if they had never learned one stitch of modesty and propriety in their life. What an unfortunate thing I had to suffer through, because my own public defender lied about her rights in my life and destroyed my right to privacy, allowed my vehicle to be taken from me when there was no lawful right for the police officer to do it other than to supposedly and allegedly protect my property. But you know what? So much of my property got damaged, stolen, and removed from my rightful ownership in that vehicle. It's not even funny. I am still missing camping silverware. I'm still missing the camera bequeathed to me by my father's passing. I am still missing my lawful photographs of my family. I am still missing all the marketing materials of my faith fob. I am still missing the fact that I took loving hours to put all that together, and some monstrous child of someone else, some adult male, some fat female who thought she would be gluttonous of my property, got into that vehicle, opened up my packages, took those cards out, and left with them, and destroyed my creative artistic jewelry that I made. Decided to take them apart and reassign them, and take out the quality chains that I had as being able to make the next set of faith fobs, and steal all that from me. The theft began at the new apartment complex, and for all I know, those people illegally took copies of my keys, followed my life, decided to destroy my personal rights in this land, and there's no law officer I can talk to about it because they all mock my life. I don't walk into their homes and say, "Undress, I'm going to mock your physical being." But I have been illegally photographed by a female officer. I've been illegally and immorally demoralized by men officers. I've been called the wrong gender many times in my life, not at all, only in the last year by sheriff who lie about their rights in clinics and hospitals because I have siblings who lie about their rights in my life. The woman I love has probably been lied to, stolen from, and literally obliterated the love she had of me because of siblings and sisters who lie, steal, and cheat me out of my rightful mother's love. My mother is so rageful that she cannot stop her rage. She literally lies to herself about her rights in my life. I am a mature man who doesn't need her to purchase me one thing because she has lied about her rights in my life. I will not allow her in my life anymore because her lies have created destruction in my legal name. Her lies have demoralized my life, and her lies make me ill in the house of God. The Lord Jesus Christ did not say to my mother, "Purchase for your child pants he will never wear, in a color he would never put on his body." An unlawful mother will force people to do things. I have many women who drive upon me for whatever reason in their minivans who try to force me to take their leftover coffee or try to go to a fast food restaurant and say, "Here, I bought this for you." And I sit there and I think, who the hell asked you to buy me one fucking thing? And as a pastor, I'm going to swear on occasion because this is not a PG-13 podcast. I am not an educator of children anymore. I'm an educator of the soul that says, if you illegally do things, you will be mocked by the police in regard to your rights. At some point, they will catch on to the illegalness of your shop, the unlawfulness of your nature, and they will come for you eventually. Once they produce their own sophisticated understanding that they're going to God, liars and thieves of people's lives, destroyers of people's souls. Only when they recognize their own sin in front of God, the Heavenly Father, and Divine Mother of all Creator of the universe, will they recognize they are going to go to hell. Because it is the Lord that produces for us our life, our wealth, our sophistication, and most importantly, our health in our old age. So when you try to lord over someone as my father used to do, he suffered in the end of his life. He didn't go quietly into the night. He went starving his way into the house of God. Now I have had 3 dreams with my father since his passing. One was very much like the Harry Potter situation in the train station where he met Dumbledore again. And he had a choice of whether he stayed in heaven or whether he returned to earth. My father sort of walked into a place where I was and turned around with his cane in a lovingly beautiful suit and walked out. That was my first dream. I can't remember all the other dream aspects, but in the 3rd dream I had, he was literally there, not pleased with my eldest sibling, who was present in the dream as a mocker of life, who thought she would just manipulate and lie and steal and cheat and medicate and do things that are not her lawful right in front of God, the Heavenly Father, the Heavenly Host, Jesus Christ our Lord. There are plenty of people who lie to themselves about their rights in people's lives. The right to take something from a person's bag while they're sleeping is not a lawful right in front of the Lord. A person's right to steal intellectual ideas from someone, never paying for it, never honoring them with their gifts of soul, in which they say, "Look, I'm worried about you. I'm worried about what's going on here. I see opportunities for harvesting more. I see opportunities for you to honor God more. I see opportunities for you not to slide yourself about who you are." And I have to tell you, the numbering system that I was taught by a loving pastor who at that time in my life walked the moments of time she provided me as much like Jesus Christ than anyone I'd ever experienced. She literally put my little soul back together after the total destruction and devastation that a female woman that I adored did to me. I also got opened up to another woman who absolutely started to put my soul back together, and she left my life far too soon through the lies of her pathological need to be loved by men, to be solicitous of them, and then to turn around and lie and say, "This person stalked me." No, people have the right to repair relationships. They have the right to say, "I love you. Stop fucking around with this stupidity of yourself and your selfish nature. Stop spoiling your children into being liars and thieves of people's rights. Stop allowing your daughter to solicit and kiss boys online so that she may lose her basketball scholarships. openly stop teaching them to be sluts of the land and manipulators of men's loins. But there are Catholics who do this. Even angel workers in gem shops lie, steal, and cheat people out of what the Lord has gifted for them to share in their client base and in their friendships across the world. And what happens to them? They suffer from cancer. What happens to the metaphysical people who lie and steal people's rights? They lose their shops. What happens to the pastors who at some point get so jealous of other people's lives that they steal property by saying, can I borrow that and share that with my students? And then they never return things. And what happens? They lose a child. The child commits some sort of a suicide, or it's a silly stupidity act of playing with guns. But I won't go too far into that because I don't want to dishonor my teacher. But I can tell you that when men and women lie to themselves about their rights and other people's lives, the Lord retaliates fully. You see, you can't profess to love the Lord and then steal from other people. You can't profess to love God and then harm a person's physical being by denying them health care that they've had their whole lives. You can't profess to know the Lord if you don't recognize the soul, and you most certainly will never parent another child if you are putting some children's ideas about another child's life over the only child's rights to his life. Does that make sense to you? What I mean is that there's always some sibling that wants to lord over another sibling. They have no lawful right in the house of God to do so. There's always a sibling that will lie in medical records. There's always a sibling that will destroy a man's legal name. There's always a sibling that will selfishly infiltrate a person's property, take business cards, and start collectively calling contacts saying, don't help this person's a liar, this person is this person is that. But who gave that individual the right to infiltrate relationships that were not produced on their own accord? That is an illness in the land that is suffering the Lord's people, destroying lives, destroying opportunities, and literally taking away your own crowns in heaven. I have stood before many men and women of the cloth and many men and women of non-for-profits who allegedly say they help people, but they do the bare minimum because they focus on just providing food. You see, a man can provide food for himself usually with the most modest of incomes. We can provide for ourselves food on less than 55 cents. There are bananas to buy, there's ramen to eat, there's wieners in cans, all underneath $1. But a true individual has to produce a result for their life. A true person in the house of God has to be able to utilize the free Wi-Fis without some manager in a Kroger store saying, I'm going to ruin this person's phone that he just purchased in our store. I'm going to tell a police officer what his number is so that he gets screwed over. I'm going to do this. I'm going to follow them around to make sure they don't steal. And they're totally missing the thieves because they're so busy following the people who are not stealing that they miss out on the affluent blacks and whites who literally walk in and put things in their purses and walk out, but because they look the part, they're completely glassed over by the security guards of those shopping centers. You see, when I talk about real things, where are the police to listen? I don't care. When I talk about real things, where are the people that I long to speak to and see and look into their eyes and say, I love you, woman. Stop fucking around in this and listen to God for the first time in your life. But I can swear like any sailor is true. My father used to sing a little song that I won't sing in this podcast, but it talked about how people don't understand their own poop colors. Now, we have lots of time to talk is not true. I've made a very long podcast to force those who've been lying to themselves about their rights to edit my work to literally piss on themselves when God takes them home. You see, the liars of land will always steal something from someone else. They will always try to destroy someone who's on a path of God. They will always lie about their rights to lie and manipulate, and they will teach theft to their children of 12. Or their nieces and nephews of that age demographic. The liars actually in my life have a very specific number on their phone numbers or in their life in some way. Every person who's brutalized my life carries that number. And openly, my siblings have a specific number that shows me they're not right for my life anymore. You see, once you study the metaphysics and the magic of the old ways of the Lord, not the paganism, not the Wiccanism that we all sort of allegedly came from, when the Catholics decided to steal the rites and rituals of those groups in order to bring more of those people into the fold of Catholicism, to make it easier for them to be converted. You see, you have to be willing to really watch the film Luther in order to know who Martin Luther was and what they did in order to convert people to their belief systems. The Jewish folks have a lovely tradition of not trying to convert anyone, but people still long to be Jewish. And therefore they are converted in their souls, and they do become part of synagogues and mosques and other places. And that is what religion does. It openly obliterates the need for people in a way that makes people uncomfortable. You see, once you live with God, you see the magic in the world. You literally recognize the signs to the point that the birds will tell you when the monsters are nearby. And the animals will convey to you messages of pay attention. But you have to go to that class in Nora to know those gifts. But my gift of soul, my gift of spirit, my gift of pendulum, my gift of faith fobbing did not come from that individual teacher. It came from my own quest, my own interactions with the one the Lord put in my life to love, honor, and marry for the rest of my life. You see, I got the signs for her long, long ago, even in college. And I started to put the synopsises of my life, the brief educational moments of my life together, the namesakes of her together, and the God signs for that woman are off the charts in accuracy. So go ahead, love. Pretend you're not in the house of God. Pretend some big macho stud is going to be the right one for you. Go ahead. But you're missing out on the magic of the Lord. And I long to show it to you. I long to tell you about it. I long to tell you the incredible story of my life. And I long to help you to see Jesus Christ in your life once again. You see, the Lord has a house with many rooms, and the people of God know the magic of the Lord and utilize the gifts of soul, the gifts of talents and spirit, and the time, treasure, and talents of their lives to help others to go further in life. Now, who this is doesn't make much care to most people, but if you've listened this far, then you know that we need a president who honors the God in heaven, who protects our lawful rights to personhood, paperwork, and property, and who will honor a little homeless man who lives behind a Goodwill right now, who sleeps on chairs that have been lovingly left outside so that he doesn't have to sleep on the concrete and allow the concrete and the pavement that suck the life out of an individual because their elements are not for the human form. We have to start producing plastics and other elements that do not remove the energy that the Lord has put in the human body. We have to honor the crystals and the stones that the Lord create, and we have to get back to some basics of the elements of science that say certain products help the body and others do not. In time, the people of the Lord will win, but only when they start to recognize they are not Lord in other people's lives. My property better start to be returned to my storage unit. The damage that is done is going to be paid for in the millions. The raping and pillaging of my body is going to put many police officers in federal prison, and openly the Lord will take your life if you come near me again. You can't say what you're going to lose in your life when you mock someone else's life. You might lose a spouse, you might lose a child, you might lose a job, you might lose your life to the law, but you will lose it to the Lord. And in that moment of time, you will be regardful of nothing because you'll be standing before the most heavenly host of all the earth and recognizing your own stupidity and thinking you were Lord in someone's life. Thanks for listening.